OP. I found out I have been dating my father for almost 4 months. Throwaway, because I can never have anyone know this happened to me. I still have no idea how to process it. Buckle up, because this is a long one. So I have never met my dad. He ran off when my mom found out she was pregnant with me. My brother was only 8 months old at the time, so he also has no memory of him. There are no pictures of him anywhere, and my mom hates talking about him. All I know is that he was emotionally abusive to her and a real arsehole. I 25M have a thing for older men. Call it daddy issues, fetishes, or whatever you want. But I pretty much only date or sleep with men 40 and up. My family doesn't know this, or that I am gay for that matter. It wouldn't be an issue. They just never ask, and we don't really share personal things like that. About 6 months ago, I met David, fake name, at a club. We hit it off great. He is in great shape for his age, supposedly 43, although that is a lie. He is actually 47, as I have found out, really attractive, charming, etc. He left for a 2-week work trip a few days after we met. But we kept messaging each other, and I really liked him, which is rare for me. We went on a date after he came back, and we have pretty much been dating ever since. He has a lot of money, and I am kind of his sugar baby, but that is not the reason I was attracted to him. That's definitely a plus. I didn't tell anyone we were dating except for 2 of my best friends. He also never met any of my friends or family, and I never met his. This changed last night. We were at a restaurant when, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted my mom. I don't live at home, and we only usually text if we need something. So I didn't know she'd be there, and to be honest, I still don't know why she was. She hates going out and thinks it is a waste of money. She had not seen us yet, but David noticed me looking at her. I will forever remember the way his face changed when he saw her. His expression went from the casual, charming smile he always had to this blank, panicked look. I obviously noticed and got a really bad feeling, so I asked him what's wrong, and he just got up and excused himself. I kept asking him where he was going and grabbed him so he couldn't just leave. At this point, I was really confused and suspicious, but I would have never guessed what would happen next. I don't think anything could ever prepare me for it. At some point, while he was getting up, my mother must have spotted us, because next thing I know, she is next to our table, asking me what was going on. I couldn't really pinpoint her facial expression because it looked like she was horrified. But again, at this point, I didn't know David was my father, and she doesn't know I am gay. David is visibly uncomfortable and looks like he wants to unalive. He was literally sweating. I assumed this was because he didn't want my mother to know I was dating someone of his age. I was about to try to explain what was going on to my mom when she said, "Why would you go behind my back like this?" I was so confused because again, I didn't know he was my dad, so what was she going on about? She probably assumed I had looked for and met up with my father without talking to her about it, despite her telling us how badly he treated her. To me, however, it seemed like she was acting crazy for no reason. I kind of took it personally and thought she was trying to tell me who to date and what to do. So I casually told her that I was just on a date with my boyfriend, and I tried to grab David's hand, but he just jumped up and ran away. He literally bolted like a effing Olympic runner. I cannot get the effing image out of my head of him jumping between waiters to get away. Everyone was staring at us by this point. It was so embarrassing, and I was mortified. My mom looked like she was frozen in place. I was more confused than ever. I had no idea what was happening. I had assumed she had asked me that because she didn't want me to be gay, which made no sense. She is very open and liberal. Or date older men, which made a bit more sense, but was still none of her business. But her expression just made my skin crawl. It asked like I could feel the horror she must have been experiencing. She just told me to get up and come with her. I was still confused, but something in her body language told me to just do as I was told. I quickly paid for our drinks and appetizers. Thank God the main course hadn't been served yet, because damn, was that SHT expensive. My mom excused herself from her friends, and once we were in her car outside, we just sat there in silence for what felt like at least 10 minutes. I didn't really dare say anything. I was still processing that my boyfriend just effing ran away from me and my mother. I had also tried to text him, but he wasn't responding. Shocker, I know. When my mom spoke, it sounded like she had been shot. She sounded so wounded. I think it might haunt me forever. She asked me who that man was, and I explained to her, and I went on about how much I loved him, because again, I was still thinking of David as my boyfriend, and assumed my mom's reaction was because of his age or gender. I cannot believe that I went on about how much I romantically loved my dad, right to my mother's face. It makes me want to puke. Long story short, she told me he was my father, and that she instantly recognized him. That talk was the most traumatic experience of my life. We both started crying at some point, and we just wept for a while in the car. I was howling. It was effing primal. I am not usually emotional or prone to crying, so it was really shocking to me just how much pain a person can feel. Most of it is just blurry now, especially compared to how clearly I remember every moment of the evening up to this. We drove home, and I slept in my old bedroom. We haven't talked about it since, but my brother is also staying at our place. He's a medical student and never moved out because of housing costs, and he knows something's up. They tried talking to me about it, and I just broke down again. How do I ever tell anyone about this? The worst part is that, despite all of this, I still love David. Just writing that makes me want to throw up. I cannot believe this is reality. Like, how effed is all of this? Why did this happen to me? I don't even think I could tell my therapist about this. I tried messaging David, but I just don't know what to say. The last message I sent him literally just said, "Please call me. I love you," sent right after he ran away. Like, what the F? What the actual effing F? Like, how do I come back from this? How do I ever look my mom in the eye again? I haven't left my room yet, and I am in tears again while writing this. I can't even remember the last time I cried before yesterday, and now I've been doing it non-stop. If anyone has any advice, as if no one else would ever accidentally do this besides stupid me, it would be highly appreciated. Also, feel free to make dark jokes about this. It's my coping mechanism. I also did not proofread this, as I don't think I can bring myself to read it again. Update. Okay, posting this the first time was a nightmare. So this is take 2. Please let me know if you see the comments. Firstly, I really appreciate everyone's comments, although I'm not in a mindset right now where I can take them seriously. It just feels kind of weird when people tell me everything's going to be alright when my entire life is in shambles. I do think I'm doing way better than I should. I think I'm just dissociating. However, what I do not appreciate is countless people DMing me, asking me questions about my actual life. So I will address this once, and for all, so y'all can stop, you effing animals. You know who you are. Yes, we had sex. No, I was not at the bottom. I do not subscribe to such outdated and heteronormative ideals of what gay sex is supposed to be like. I am a switch and only date other switches. Yes, the sex was good. I don't date people who are bad in bed. No, I will not continue to have effing sex with my father, send you naked pics, or give you sex stories about this. Like, what the F is wrong with you all? Anyway, there you go. Have the tea you so clearly desire, so you can effing leave me alone. I also don't appreciate the blatant racism in my DMs and on TikTok, saying he wanted to get rid of my black arse, or that's what you get for having white DNAs. Are you all effing crazy? Granted, this was mostly in TikTok comments, but some of you have no shame in DMing some random person and just spewing blatant racism. Also, that's what is bothering you about this. Bruh, there is homophobia too, but like, it's not even worth addressing that. Y'all know it is wrong and still keep going. There's no point in even trying to correct you. Now, for all the other lovely people. I think I need to talk about my mother first. A lot of people have a lot to say about her, and I just think I need to set some things straight. She is not a bad person, and she did everything she could to raise us to the best of her ability. She is also a black single mom living in a country where she is a minority, which put a lot of roadblocks in her way. But she always made sure to give my brother and me the best childhood she could. When I think of her, I only have fond, loving memories. Some people assumed, because of some of my previous statements, that we are not a close family, which is definitely not the case. We just really value independence and freedom. I live about an hour away from my mom, but still visit her monthly. We call at least once a week. We just don't force each other to confess things or information that the person doesn't willingly give up. My brother, for example, has always been very open about his dating life with my mom. She has met all his girlfriends, and they often came to family gatherings. And just more private. That being said, she has not always been perfect, because no parent is. A lot of people were upset at her for not telling us about our dad. And trust me when I say that she is aware that she has made a mistake. But she also moved to another continent just to keep us away from him and make sure we never ran into him. There is no way that she could have known that he would move to the same country as us years later. I am not going to name specifics because I don't want anyone to recognize that this is me, since a lot of this is already quite specific. But she really did her best to make sure we never had to go near him, and none of this is her fault. I don't blame her in the slightest. If anything, I blame myself for being so angry at her whenever she tried to tell me or my brother about him. I was never interested in finding out more about my father. In truth, I resented him deeply for leaving my mother alone to fend for herself in a world that wanted to see her fail. Since this has come to light, a lot of things I didn't know about my family have also been brought up. I found out that my brother and my mother often talked about my father, just not in front of me, since I was so adamant to never learn anything about him. I remember throwing a tantrum because my brother kept asking when Dad's birthday was. My brother knew his full name, had seen pictures of him, and knew most of the full story of what had gone down between my mom and him. It is not my story to share as it is fully hers, and so I will not go into details. But know that he was not just emotionally abusive, as I had believed my entire life, but also physically and financially. The story of him leaving when she found out I was pregnant isn't fully accurate either. He apparently threatened to harm her if she didn't get an abortion, and so she packed her things up and left him. According to her, he never reached out or tried to find her, and she moved to make sure it would stay that way. She really just tried to protect us, and I will never be able to truly articulate how grateful I am. Obviously, finding out about all this just makes me feel worse. I always shut them out when they tried to tell me about my father and refused to learn anything about him because I naively presumed that I was better than him and therefore didn't need to bother learning anything about a man I wasn't good enough for. Obviously, that backfired, and here we are. Thankfully, my mother does not blame me whatsoever. She is extremely understanding of my side, and we have convinced her to find a therapist. She also joined group counseling for victims of domestic violence. My brother, on the other hand, is absolutely livid. I felt we had to tell him eventually, and after consulting with my therapist, we decided to just rip it off like a bandage and set him down. I basically first told him I was gay. He did not care, as expected. Then that I was into older men. He was very confused about where this was going, and also why I was telling him. I don't think he was ready for it or took it well. And then that I met Dad, and that bomb kind of hit and took all his attention at first, because he has always wanted to meet him and really struggled with not having a father, unlike me. His excitement quickly faded though when he connected the dots of me being into older men, meeting Dad and my mom, and my weird and worrying behavior for the past few days. It messed him up pretty badly, and I really regret telling him at all. He can't come to terms with it, and is visibly disgusted by the thought, as he always viewed our father as our father, while I viewed him as some afterthought sperm donor that ran off. He hasn't really talked to me since we told him, and when he does, it's disgusting remarks, insults, or passive aggression. My mother is furious with him, and it is not helping. She has always hated when we would fight, but now especially, she feels like he is treating me unfairly since I am already going through so much. But I think he is fully within his right to be angry or disgusted. He is just being such a D about it. It is also really uncharacteristic of him to act like this. He even went as far as to call my Aunt Mom's sister and tell her what happened. Thankfully, we can trust her to keep it a secret, her husband, and she are basically a second set of parents for us. But I still think it is really effed up of him to do that. He also refuses to see a therapist and keeps saying that I am the mentally messed up one, not him, whenever we try to bring it up. It has only been like less than 48 hours since we told him though, so I am sure he will come around. He also really wants to go meet Dad, which everyone keeps telling him is a terrible idea because he really is the worst. Stay tuned, goddamn. But he is so stubborn and keeps yelling at me to give him Dad's address. He is so obsessed with this idea of a man who doesn't exist and wants SHT to do with him. Even before I found out he was my father, he never wanted to meet my family. Granted, I also didn't want him to meet them, but the one time we talked about it, he laughed at the idea as if it were preposterous. Now, he is really the only person I blame for all of this besides myself. He really is a little cowardly piece of trash, and I wish I had never effing met him. I think this entire thing and his behavior after being recognized just really broke something in me that I didn't really know was there. I never cared about him before, but now I genuinely know that he will also never give a single SHT about me, and that really hurts. Basically, I kept texting and calling him the evening of what we have referred to as the event because I was desperate and confused and couldn't really believe what was happening. I then texted him 2 more times during the day off and called once. There was no response to either. Then 2 nights ago, I decided to call him again, even though everyone in my entire life was against it. This was also just after we told my brother, and we had a huge fight about it. I was really vulnerable, and I don't know what the hell was fried in my head, but some part of me must have believed that he would comfort me. He had been extremely emotionally available during our relationship, which very much contradicted what my mother had told me about him and their relationship. I didn't think he would pick up the phone, but he did, and it was effing terrible. He immediately started yelling as soon as he picked me up. He had never yelled at me before, ever. Started calling me all kinds of slurs like F-got and posse, which is just absurd. Started threatening me that he would off me and my B-mother if I ever contacted him again, and said that if I told anyone about this, I would regret ever meeting him. Jokes on you, B. I already do. It was such a effing turn of character that I was genuinely not prepared for it, and had no idea what I was supposed to do. I just cried on the other end of the phone while he kept yelling at me until he finally hung up. The entire thing was utterly terrible, and I can't believe that I didn't trust my mother and listen to her sooner, when she clearly tried to tell me how horrible he was on multiple occasions throughout my childhood. I just feel so stupid. I will probably never contact him again, but I cannot believe I undid all the efforts my mother put in to keep us safe all those years, and let him play with the both of us in the exact same way, just because I wanted some D. I took some people's advice and sent the post to my therapist with a short email explaining some more private stuff. I sent it around 5 a.m., the day after the event, and then went to sleep for almost 15 hours and woke up to tons of missed texts and calls from her, starting with extreme concern and then slight annoyance because I think she thought it was a sick prank since I didn't respond. We talked on the phone later, and she told me that I can call her whenever I want. She is not an in-person therapist, which I prefer. I do feel secure knowing that I can confide in her, and I'm glad I told her. I also joined some online support groups, but most of them either shamed me because of the age gap or my sexuality, so that didn't really do much good. I've also told my two best friends, against what some people advised. I trust them with everything, and they wouldn't be my friends if that wasn't the case. I will be using fake names for this, but basically Lee, my oldest friend we met in kindergarten, called me on FaceTime, which is not unusual. The night of this happening, I had told her I was sick so she'd leave me alone, but she called me to ask how I was doing the next day. I had just had another mental breakdown and was still sobbing when I picked up the phone. She was obviously concerned, and I just kind of blurted it out. Of course, she thought I was joking at first, and asked me if I was on drugs or some SHT. I don't even do drugs, lol, because I pretty much never cry. I then just kind of told her everything, and it was really freeing. She was the first person I told. I then sent our other friend the TikTok of this, and just let her react to it. Then told her I wrote that and let Lee handle it. I'm really grateful for them. They have been insanely supportive. I'm still staying at home, and they're helping me to feed my cat and look after my plants for as long as I need. No judgment at any point. Just them asking me how they can help. Get yourself friends like this. So, all in all, my dad is trashed to no one's surprise. I might have mentally broken my brother. Therapy works. And my mother and friends are the best people on this planet. I will keep answering questions for the next few days, and I think after that I will log out of this Reddit account for good. Documenting and sharing this with people has really helped me, and I appreciate all the comments, even if I cannot do much with them to help my recovery at the moment. Also, the jokes are top tier. Keep them coming. Everyone's tiptoeing on eggshells around me, so it's nice to see the comments just go feral. I just want to feel normal again. Thank you for watching the video.